Yeah.
You and I have known each other since high school. Okay. Now
Yes.
I graduated in 87 and I know you were born before me, so it happened a little earlier. Okay.
Couple years. Yes.
Couple years. Okay. And I would say that you were a person in high school that um I'm just going to say the majority, if not all, people liked. And the reason I would say is because you were a person that attracted people, you didn't repel them, and you were a person that was pretty easygoing. Okay. And I've watched your progression somewhat since high school. There's some things I want to ask about today to find out kind of like where, what happened since high school, what happened since college, tell us a little bit about your career. But I've got some major questions I want to ask because of the person you are today. And that's the one I've spent the most time with is in the last several years, the grown-up adult version of Andy.
Yes.
Um, so I'm excited. I'm excited to do this today. I'm excited to talk with you and, ask some questions. So Andy, give me a little bit of history. Okay. You graduated Worthington Christian, same place I did. What did you do after that? Where'd you go to school? And then what was your first job? What was your first career?
So after high school, there was myself and one other person that had no plans to go to college. That was unrare. That was rare back then. That was rare. And I ended up working as an electrical apprentice my first year out of high school and quickly learned a lot about uh, wiring houses and buildings and found out this is not really what I would love to do forever. There's something more that I want to do. So that next year, hang on, this is a crazy story. This next year, uh, I went to Word of Life Bible Institute for 1 year. It's a 1 year school. I came back from Word of Life. That was my choice to go there. It had some really good benefits for me. So I'm
Is Word of Life
appreciative of that.
Chicago?
No, that's Moody. Your Word of
Moody.
Life was
Okay.
Scroon Lake, New York.
That's right.
Got
Okay.
back from Word of Life and ended up moving to Michigan and went to Grand Rapids. I enrolled in a junior college up there, lived with a couple family members. And then that following summer, I joined the National Guard. So I went to boot camp that summer and did my training, which took almost a full year. Came back to Michigan for a semester and then ended up going to Taylor University and finished my college at Taylor University. So I was about 3 or 4 years behind from what my normal classmates were, but I packed in a lot of different things in my life because of that. So at Taylor University, I met the girl of my dreams and we ended up getting married. I was 23 when we got married. We're celebrating this summer. We'll be celebrating our 34th year together, which is just,
Terrific.
but by the grace of God, but by the
Amen.
grace of God. So yeah, I had a lot of incredible experiences. And the thing I love the most about the diversity that I had chosen by going to all these different places was the different people that I got to meet. And I love having relationships that are as old as you and I, Greg. Our friendship goes back to high school. So yeah, that's
No,
my
I love it.
that's
So,
what I
so
was doing.
Andy, you graduated high school. You went
Mhm.
through what you just went through. Would you say that was 6, 7 years?
No, 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 no. That was a total of probably 5 years,
5 years. Okay.
6 years. Yeah, maybe.
So
Yeah,
you
maybe. Yeah, you're right. Maybe about 6 years.
so you graduated
So
Taylor about 6 years after high school.
yeah, well, I was 23, so 18. Yeah, no, it was
Okay.
like 5 years. Yeah, I did
Terrific.
pretty well.
Okay, so you left Taylor.
Huh?
Okay. I want to know what happened from Taylor to what I remember, okay, is you getting into a very successful mortgage career. Okay.
Yeah,
Tell me about
yeah,
that gap and then lead us into your mortgage career. Cause that's where you and I kind of really reconnected after high school. You were in mortgage and doing quite well. So tell us
yeah.
about that.
So what one of the things I learned from Word of Life was the importance of being involved in a church and the community of church. And I grew up in the church. My parents are strong believers. And so that was always important. But that was so seated into me that wherever I went, I made it an effort to get involved with a church, whether it was in Columbus or in Grand Rapids. And when Susie, my wife, and I got married, we ended up moving into Fort Wayne, Indiana. Our first priorities as a married couple were to find a church. And it wasn't long before we found a church. And this church was doing something new back then. It was called small groups, which was just basically it was a Wednesday night Bible study, but it was different nights and they were breaking members of the church up into smaller groups and really diving deep. And that was the start of something that was important in my life. And the next thing that happened that was really crucial for me was about that time, Promise Keepers came out, and Promise Keepers instilled the importance of accountability. And I was able to link up with a brother in Christ who was a little bit older than me, and we started being accountable to one another. And so, between being faithful at church and the accountability, I believe those were the steps that protected my marriage and protected me from, a lot of things that could have happened. So from Taylor University through the mortgage business, there was a lot of ups and downs. I did not have a clear direction of what I was supposed to do. It's actually painful for me to think back at some of the things that I was trying to do and things that didn't work out. It was very painful in my marriage, if I'm going to be real about it, and it caused a lot of hurt and pain that Susie and I actually had to get help with. We've done a lot of counseling in our marriage, and I highly recommend anyone that is married, getting married, to have a phenomenal counselor on speed dial that can help you through those difficult challenges that every marriage will hit. So I did everything, Greg, from trying to run my own company to working at Enterprise Rent a Car to working for a printing company. And there was just a lot. I just couldn't find myself. And even though I had spiritual people, like the mentorship happening, I just didn't have really good guidance on what my purpose and calling was. But again, all these different experiences eventually led me to Chase Bank back in 2008 or 2009 when I joined Chase Bank and was hired on as a mortgage guy with a zero experience, and ended up learning the mortgage business and starting to excel from there, and found out that it was something that I really enjoyed. So from
Okay.
2009, I was at Chase, and then I moved my way to a small bank, and then I moved myself to becoming a broker, where I was no longer under a bank, but thought, there's mortgage brokers. You can kind of have a little bit more control over that whole process. And so I
On.
took that next leap of faith and became my own mortgage broker. And that was through November of 2022 is when I left that mortgage world. So I left the mortgage world to dive into the world of this healthcare agency, Ridgeline Recovery, which is a recovery center for addiction and mental health. That's a huge leap. It doesn't make sense, but I've taken everything over the course of my life that I've done and have been able to apply it to this business that I'm at Ridgeline Recovery. It's an actual business, is what we do. So that's a lot.
So let's go back a few steps and then we'll jump in to back to mortgage and where you are now. Okay.
Yeah.
During
Yeah.
this period of time of going from Taylor and to mortgage, you described,
Mhm.
Greg, there was a bunch of ups and downs. There was a lot of
Yes.
things we had to work through. Were these
Yes.
things that were primarily on you, or were these things between you and Susie, or were these things that both of you individually brought into the marriage that you had to work through?
It's good. I would say a lot of it was just me. Again, a man that doesn't have direction on or a purpose, you can just kind of go wayward for a while and not feel fulfilled and not feel satisfied and chase the wrong things. So, and then of course, like any marriage, you're going to bring in your baggage, and we both had our own baggage that we brought into our marriage that we didn't understand how to work through, but we found counselors that helped us work through those struggles and those tough times.
Right
So
on.
yeah, absolutely. Again, we had people that were championing us to get the help that we needed because we believed in marriage. We knew that divorce was not an option. It was
Right.
not going to happen. And I've said this from the very beginning. Okay, well, if divorce isn't an option, then we're either going to be in a great marriage or a bad marriage. I don't want to be in a bad marriage. So how do we figure this out? How do we make this work? And I have, again, Susie, who's always been willing to work on things and to grow our marriage in a way that would bring joy through what we're doing and really glorify the Lord in what we're doing. I'm grateful for her. I'm so grateful for her. Yeah.
No, I
Yes.
love it. So
Believe me,
Andy,
there
here's
was
the
times
deal.
too. Mhm,
You and I are both guys. Okay.
mhm,
You know,
mhm,
I've been married 35 years. Okay. And we've been dating 39 years. Okay. My wife and I.
mhm,
So I get it. I mean, there's going to be things that probably overlap in our world in those early years of marriage and stuff like that. But this is what I want to ask. What are some things that you could share? You share whatever you'd like to, but what are some things you could share that were some major things you dealt with back then that you're now over? Okay. And you learned something through.
yeah, it's good. Greg, my biggest struggle was my pride. That was my biggest struggle in my life, and not really being able to identify it. My pride came out in several ways. I was incredibly selfish, and I don't always understand why I was that way. So sometimes the people that would see me in one uh, sense didn't understand the selfishness or pride that I was carrying that my wife would see. And so I was able to begin to see areas and have people allow people to point out some faults in my life that needed to change. And again, that was also the Holy Spirit beginning to help me recognize those things and remove those things out of my life, which were very, very painful. So yeah, pride and selfishness towards wanting to put myself first, not understanding the importance of putting my wife really first. I thought I was, and there were times I probably did, but we've had such a beautiful reconciliation over so many circumstances in our past marriage about just asking for forgiveness and rehashing those in a really healthy way and being able to identify those things. And so now it makes me, it's really hard for me to think about the past, even though it's been forgiven by my wife and because of what Christ did on the cross for us, we're forgiven. Praise the Lord. So I don't ever take it for granted. Yeah. And being able to have men speak into your life, Greg, you know the importance of that is and call you out on your nonsense is what I would say, or question you and challenging you. So yeah.
So how did
So
this selfishness and self-centeredness manifest itself in your early marriage?
it just caused a lot of misunderstanding in our communication. It caused arguments. It was it was my selfishness because it was going to be my way because I always knew best, and I didn't give her the space to be herself. I didn't give her the ability to find her own voice. And she's a very strong, uh, determined woman. She's a hard worker, Susie is, and the fact that I squelched her voice at times, that was a hard pill to swallow. And again, that's in the past, but we're talking about maybe this will touch someone's life they'll be able to say, oh my gosh, I think maybe I've been doing that to my wife or to my spouse. It could be from the spouse to the husband. So yeah. Does that answer your
So
question?
sure, but let's go a little deeper than this. Okay. Yeah. You
Okay.
come in with a selfish nature. We're all selfish. Okay. We could all say, yeah, I'm a little bit like that. Yeah. I'm a little bit, my way or the highway because I'm the man. I get that. But how did what were you like back then that you saw the selfishness come out? I mean, were you a selfish kid? Were you selfish at home? Were you selfish in high school? Are you just realizing this about you in your early marriage and now you're addressing it? Tell me, like, what did it
I
look
think
like?
I think that, well, what boy, you're gonna so I would look back at times in our marriage and even in our dating. Oh my gosh, even in our dating. And I would put myself above her on decisions that we should have been making together, or that maybe I should have given, or that I should have given her the right to make instead of me making them for her. And those decisions throughout our marriage cost us financially. It cost us emotionally. It just brought a lot of turmoil. Decisions about where I was going to work and what I was going to do, and what I wasn't going to do, what I was choosing not to enter into with work. It was always related around work. As I mentioned to you earlier, I didn't have a real clear path of what I should be doing. I also didn't have an understanding that whatever I was doing, it literally could have been glorifying the Lord, whether it was working at Enterprise Rent a Car or whether it was selling printing here in Columbus, Ohio. I never understood that till later on, that all of those things actually matter to God, and that we don't have to be on the mission field to be glorifying the Lord. He takes glory when we work hard for ourselves and and provide for our families.
Right
Yeah.
on.
So yeah, it manifested itself in those ways. Yeah, financially, emotionally, it robbed us. It robbed us of what we could have had, and hopefully people will see what our marriage is now
Yeah.
and ask, what is it that you guys are doing so differently, or what is it you guys look so happy? And it's not just happy. There's a peace and a joy in our marriage. There's a connection that we have now that we often say, wow, I wish we would have known this 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It would have made the journey that much sweeter. And the journey together during tough times is way better than the journey through tough times not connected, not communicating. That's when it gets really, really rough, because there's going to be ups and downs in our marriage. Just the fact that you're connected and working together as a whole helps you get through those valleys a lot easier.
Right
So
on. No, right on. Okay, so did you feel like during this period of time that you were living your life, you, the man, Andy, like almost like a pinball machine? You were just kind of bouncing around and just didn't really have a direction, and you were more or less reacting to what's going on around you?
I think yes, I would say in some degree. I think I was just frustrated again because I couldn't get out of my head what it was that I was supposed to be doing. So I was trying to create businesses that just weren't ever going to be successful. I look back now and just thought, man, what was I thinking? And I don't even know, Greg, if I would have listened to somebody, because I was pretty good at convincing everyone that these are the best ideas in the whole world. Maybe they weren't convinced. Maybe they were just convinced themselves that I was never going to change my mind on it. So I don't know. But again, those are the decisions that really set us back in so many areas of our life. And
Okay, so
yet,
you guys got
and yet,
married. You
go
guys
ahead,
got married what? 90 what?
91.
91.
So,
Okay, so
yep.
91, and you're in this state of early marriage where you
Hmm.
personally are selfish, self-centered, my way or the highway. And this
Hmm.
went on for how many years before you started to see yourself changing and in a sense, peeling off this selfish, my way or the highway, um, clothing or peels,
Yeah.
like onions.
Yeah.
How long did that go on?
Well, if we're going to use the onion analogy, there was layers that were being peeled off years 2 and 3 because of our church in Fort Wayne and the counseling we started to receive during that time. That was a good start for us. And then we ended up doing someone sent us to a marriage seminar like year 3 or 4 into our marriage, and that was beautiful. And that was something that I realized that we needed to be able to better understand each other. And but I would say Promise Keepers was helpful. It was all these little steps, but it wasn't until probably 7, 8 years ago where we got another deep dive of counseling, and we had some couple counseling from the same person, but I had that individual counseling. And I think that's when things started to really become clear. And I was able to break off some of this past that I was carrying, this baggage. And just the light just kind of went on how to really honor and love my wife the way that she deserves to be loved and honored, the way that God desires for her to be loved and honored. And so that light went on. And as I started to move towards that new direction and understanding, again, why I was the way I was, um, I also started going to a marriage seminar once a year, and that marriage seminar then also just gave us the boost, the flames, the that we needed every year to continue to see more patterns in our own life. And yeah, one of the biggest things I realized was I had all these expectations that I was putting on my wife that she had no idea that I had on her, which was just ridiculous. And once I started to understand and remove any expectations and started working on my own life and started practicing what I needed to practice as being a really like godly, loving, caring husband, that's when things began to change. So for years, I was convinced it was, well, she would need to change and then I could change. She would probably say the same thing. Well, if he changes, then I could change. That's not how it works. I wish I would have understood that. Again, I wish I would have understood it early on. I don't know if I would have listened. I don't know. I would hope that I would have, but by the grace of God, year 28, 27 into our marriage of 34 years, I got it, and I'm still getting it, still learning it. So it's a beautiful journey to be married and to really be that vulnerable to love your wife in a way that you're going to put her first in all aspects. Do I have my struggles every once in a while? Sure, of course I do. But here's the great news. She knows it now. She recognizes it when I might be selfish. Sometimes she'll just let me go with it. Sometimes she'll call me out on it. Other times, we'll compromise and again, I'm just trying to constantly figure out how to put her first in all things. So
Gotcha. So you're saying that this whole selfish, self-centeredness, my way or the highway really got completely resolved in year 28 of your marriage.
I would say so, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So
28, year 28.
this,
Yeah.
this is very important. Okay. Because here you are, you're a guy trying to figure out what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I going to do? I can't seem to land. I want to know, there's so many people that feel that way. How did you finally, instead of circling the runway, how did you finally land and know this is the airport I'm supposed to be at? When did you know that? And how did you determine yourself, this is the runway I'm going to land on?
It was a counselor. It was our counselor that we had hired, and she was working with both of us, but she was working one-on-one with me. And my heart, Susie was so frustrated. She was ready to leave. She was ready to say, "I'm going to walk away
Good.
for a while. Just walk away for a while. I can't do this right now." And that rocked my world. Because that's when I realized how much hurt, pain she was experiencing, that she didn't even want to be around me. And so the counselor really helped us through that process, but helped me to start gently realizing these are areas of my life that that I've been hanging on to. And that's the key. It was a good counselor, Greg. Yeah, and maybe you don't need a good counselor to do that. I would say it doesn't hurt. You better have some good counsel around you is what you need to have. You have to have people that will call your BS out on you is what you need to have. So yeah, I didn't want to destroy a marriage. I didn't want to destroy a family. We have one son. I never want to be that guy where I get to see my kids on the weekend or we're shared custody. No way. So I will do whatever I have to take to make this thing work,
I
whatever
get
it
it.
takes. Yeah. Again, that's why I said at the beginning, by the grace of God, God gave me a beautiful wife that was able to hang in there. Most people would never hang in there that long. They just wouldn't, Craig. I
I get
know
it.
it.
No, I get it. So Andy, I'm going to go back to this. You're the pilot of the airplane. I'm
Uh,
going to look at the I'm going to look at the tower as your counselor, giving you
mhm,
wisdom and guidance, but you
mhm,
had to land the plane. What
mhm.
changed in you? I appreciate that the counselor met with you and talked with you, but what changed in you so that these areas that were holding you back now aren't? You're landing the plane at the airport, and this is where I'm going to plant my flag. What happened to you that caused that to happen?
I started to put my wife first in all things, Greg.
Okay.
And that looked as simple as well, let me back up. I we were at a marriage conference and the couple that were speaking were he was talking about opening the car door for his wife. This is 4 years ago. And at the marriage conference after that first session, we had to go somewhere. So I run out and I opened the door for her. And like I was being serious, but I was also kind of looking around the parking lot to show everyone that I was opening the car for my wife. And of course she's laughing and she's giggling. But that started something. I haven't stopped opening the door for her now for 4 years, and she thought it was ridiculous and silly. And she's like, "You don't need to open the door for me. I don't care if she's out at the shopping mall and I drop her off. I'll get out of the car and go open the car door for her." That simple act is a reminder for me to put her first. If I can't put her first on something so simple as opening the car door for her, then it's going to be way harder for me to do other things that would put her first. So a simple act of opening the car door. If she would ask me to get her something while we're in the house, I used to grumble and complain and, what's wrong with your legs or you can't get, no, whatever she asks for, my immediate response is to jump up as fast as I can and to go get what she wants. I don't want to think twice about it. I don't want any thoughts of selfishness to come into my life. So these are simple little actions that we can do. And what happened was when I started doing these things, she started noticing, and I was doing it without any. I didn't want any recognition for it. I just wanted to serve her. These little things started to change how she was responding to me and how she started wanting to serve me in different areas also. So much that she looked at me a while back and said, I I have to be careful what I ask for you because you would do it for me, wouldn't you? I'm like, yeah, I would. Absolutely. And some of that, Greg, is the past making up for lost time. I know you can't really do that. Some of that is just a heavy heart that I hadn't always been treating her this way. She deserved it. And so some of it is just empathy out of my own life to just try my hardest to express by showing her, not just telling her. I was good at telling her I loved her, but showing her is totally different ballgame. So that's how I started landing the plane, and that leads into what does she really want? What decisions does she really want? Because I was really great at making decisions. I could I was really great at I'm great at fixing problems, but I realized she doesn't want me to fix her problems. She just wants me to listen to her. So really honing in and just starting to listen to her That takes practice because, guys, we can fix things real quickly. I mean, whether it's problems with work or friends or family, oh man, we got the answers. We can make that thing happen in no time. If you just listen to me, I got the answer. So yeah, but that's how I started to land the plane. Was I started putting some simple actions in place in my marriage, and I haven't stopped. And I'm going to continue to do more and more and more.
Okay, so Andy, you went to Worthing Christian like I did. You have a personal
Mhm.
relationship with Jesus Christ. You're saved.
Yes.
You went through college. You went through the National Guard. You're living this period of time where you're selfish, you're self-centered. Your marriage is kind of bumpy and rocky. It's not what it could be, and you're trying to figure out what's my purpose. What am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to land this plane? And you're saying that your life came together because you got things right with you and your wife.
Hmm.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so would you say that's true for all marriages, or would you say that's true just for yours because of your situation?
I would say that would be true for most marriages.
Yeah.
For most marriages that are, let me say it this way: if you and your spouse are Christ followers, okay, that it can be true for your marriage. God can intervene and work within your marriage. And yeah, I know some people would disagree with me on that, but nothing's too big for God. He can change hearts, he can change patterns, he can change minds. When I started to focus on my relationship with the Lord and my own personal healing and not trying to fix Susie, then that's when things started to change. And what if he doesn't? What if your spouse never changes? The point is, it's not about that. It's about what God's trying to do in your life. Period. You know.
Yeah. What kind of example did you grow up with? Like, what kind of example did you grow up with mom and dad? Okay. Did I mean, how did that influence your marriage?
So my parents were married 50, 60 years and were very faithful to one another. They were consistent on getting us to church, but they were old school. And so there wasn't the thought of going to counseling was never going to happen. The thought of small groups and men and accountability, that was never going to happen with my dad. No offense, it is what it is. So I think and he went to Promise Keeper with me. So and my dad was, one of the great things about my dad was there were men at our church that were going through some really rough times. And they would go to my dad because he was the least non-judgmental believer that I know. That was a beautiful thing, no matter what the situation was. And some men brought some really tough things to him and my mom, and they were just non-judgmental. But I think looking back, I wish he would have had some counseling that would have released some of his own childhood pain and things that he has gone through, because everyone has some type of trauma in their life, Greg. And if you don't deal with that trauma, it's going to come out one way or the other in your marriage and your relationships, at your work. It's just going to come out.
Right
So
on.
yeah, but they were faithful, and my siblings and I really, who were all married. There's four of us. We're all still married. We're beating the odds. We all have solid Christ following spouses. And because of the consistency of my mom and dad being faithful to church, being faithful to each other, I know that's spoken heavily to me.
Right
So
on.
yeah.
So Andy, you now are in a position, where you've landed the plane, the onion's been peeled back, your marriage is going in a good direction, and it may not be 4 years ago, but your marriage is moving in a much better direction, and God leads you to start working at Chase and learning the mortgage industry. Is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
Is Was that like a really critical job in the sense that, wow, I'm working at Chase in the mortgage department? Or was it, I took what I learned there and then it was, wow, I'm going to do this on my own and have my own company?
No, I was wowed to be able to get the job first off, because they were only hiring people with experience. I had zero experience, so I know God had His hand in this. And I had a dear friend of mine that helped me get this job, and so I moved into this mortgage field, and there was a piece that came over financially for us and stability that we really needed in our marriage. But with Chase, it opened my eyes to this whole banking world that I never really understood, and it gave me opportunities to use what I have always had in me. It's this entrepreneurial spirit, and you have it also, Greg, to do something really great. And I wasn't ready to make those leaps yet, but I was at Chase for 3 years and found a small little bank that I could go work at and build relationships with realtors to develop business and grow my own little business that way. And then the next leap for me was, as I mentioned, to start my own mortgage company, to get away from the bank as a whole and just be my own person as a mortgage company. So that was those next steps. So what's interesting is I needed stability. Chase gave me that. I needed the skills. Chase gave me that. But it finally uh, it married up with that desire for me to do more and run my own business with a set of skills that I actually have and knew that would work. And during this time, because I was working on my marriage, my wife was very uh, uh, at peace with these decisions for us that we were going to make. I've been straight commission for years. And so that freaks a lot of people out, but she just had a peace and she saw what I was doing. She saw the changes that were happening in my life and she knew this will be a good thing and we're going to be okay. As opposed to if you look previous to that, she never felt good about a lot of the decisions. If I would have listened to her because she had discernment, I would have saved us a lot of heartache. And so that was that shift that has happened because I started to put my wife first. I started dealing with my own internal issues. I started to heal my own trauma, and God started using all that for His benefit. It was always there to be used. God was always wanting to involve me in these things, but I just couldn't get out of my own way.
Yeah. So you moving into your own company, was this your first business, your first, entrepreneurial move?
No, no, but this was the first successful one.
Okay. So tell me about
Yeah.
it. What made it successful compared to the others?
Well, again, I was already in a space. I knew mortgages. I already had relationships built. And so for me to break away from a bank and say, hey, I can be my own mortgage company. I can find other banks that will allow me to use their tools to provide better customer service, better rates to my clients just seemed like it wasn't that difficult. There was a lot of hurdles for me to get my license and to get my little shop open. It's highly regulated. And just accomplishing these little things, little at a time, which ended up being a big thing and being able to open up my own mortgage company, I felt great. And connecting past people with myself to help me grow this thing was that it just felt like it was a reward for all the failed things that I had done. Um, and that my spirit of wanting to do something well was never crushed, Greg. Right? Yeah, I never lost that spirit.
That's right. Okay. So you were in mortgage for what, 3, 4 years?
I did mortgages for from 2009 through 2022, almost 2023. So 14
Wow.
years.
Okay. So that's including
Yeah,
Chase.
that's including Chase.
Man,
Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay. I didn't realize it was that long. So that was a
yeah.
good chunk of your marriage.
It was a good chunk of our marriage. Yes.
Okay. So let me ask you this then, since it was only 4 years ago that things really started to not started, but really, tightened up with your marriage. Okay.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
the biggest element of the Chase role in your marriage is that it brought in financial stability and
Yes.
security? Yeah.
Yes.
Women love that.
Man.
I totally get it. Okay.
Yes.
So you've got stability now financially. You're
Yeah.
working on you. And so you're developing that stability in your marriage through counselors, maybe through some events you've gone to, changes inside of yourself. And you're
Yeah.
really developing as a man, right?
Hmm.
Are you starting, when did you start to see when did you look in the mirror and see yourself through a different lens than what you were looking at previously? When was that?
So I would say that was about about 5 years ago. That was when so financial stability started actually in 2009 when we went to Chase. That's when things started to get really to bring some peace to my wife's life. Again, you know, as a man, we could live on scraps if we think something's going to work. You know, we got it. We could just tell
Yes.
ourselves so many stories, but then God puts a woman in your life who's like, I need some stability. I'm like, yeah, I get it. So, but about and also I've always been part of a men's group. I've always had accountability since Fort Wayne, Indiana. So from the very beginning, from we got married, probably since 1993, I've had someone in my life that I could connect with that I keep accountable to. And so that's a really big key. If you're a man, and you don't have someone that you're accountable to, that's a dangerous thing. So it's still dangerous with accountability partners, but it's even more dangerous without accountability. And I would say that there was I was invited to another Bible study on Fridays, and it was a group of businessmen. And it was, I ended up going, I didn't really want to go, I didn't have time. I ended up going to that men's group about 5 years ago. It was like January 4th, 2020, I guess. And I'd met a group of men and the way that they were understanding the Word of God and understanding how to read God's Word on the Bible's terms, and seeing these men share as businessmen what God's doing in their life, how their struggles and their marriages, it was just kind of all come together. That's when the biggest change for me, the next level of change came for me, was because of that men's Bible study. And
Okay.
I'm still faithful to go to that every Friday and
Tremendous.
connect with those men. Yeah. And I need it. I need as much accountability in my life as I can possibly get.
Okay.
So,
So you've talked about, Greg, if you're married and you're a Christ follower, you got to get your marriage together. You need to
mhm,
bring security into the family, security into
mhm,
the marriage, and that's
mhm,
financial. Okay. Yeah.
mhm,
Security
mhm,
physically, sure, but
mhm,
financial, very important. Okay.
mhm,
And you need accountability. You need to be plugged into some people that can encourage you and feed you and help you grow. Okay. And it wasn't until about 5 years ago that you actually could look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm a different person than I was
mhm.
previously.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's just 5
Yeah.
years ago. And you're 55,
Seven.
56,
57.
57. Okay. So you're 52 years old when this happens.
Mhm,
So it's been a
mhm.
journey for you. I mean, it's
Yes.
been a journey. I relate,
Yes.
but I'm saying it's been a journey. Okay.
Yes.
So you're in mortgage. You're doing very well from all I know. I don't know specifics, but I know
I mean,
you were
yeah,
doing very well.
on the
Okay.
world's terms, we're doing fine. We're doing
Okay.
really well. Yeah.
Okay. Great. So you're doing really, really well. Why the change from mortgage into something that I know is drastically different? But I have to believe some of your past is helping you do what you're doing today,
That's
potentially. I
good.
don't know, but that's why I'm asking.
Yes. Yeah. So the mortgage business is 24/7. I sacrificed, even those 14 years, I was sacrificing nights, weekends, holidays to take calls in order to secure the next deal. And no matter how good the money was, it was paying a toll. It did pay a toll on my marriage still. And I recognize that. So a
Still
friend of
today.
mine, what's that?
Still today, it's paying a toll on your marriage from those years.
No, it
Okay,
did.
okay,
No, it doesn't anymore because
okay.
again, my wife has really just released any frustration. If we're going to talk, I've had to ask forgiveness for my son, who's 23, about things that I would get frustrated over, and I know it was because of the stress of the mortgage business, and I would take it out on the family at times, even though God was still working on me and things were getting better. The mortgage company was just a tremendous amount of stress, and I didn't love it anymore. I didn't enjoy it, and I was looking for a way out. And I was presented with the idea of opening a healthcare agency that works with people that have addiction. I knew nothing about this, but I thought, oh well, maybe I can get this thing open and have someone run it, and I'll just run the mortgage company and be able to maybe leave the mortgage company and do this healthcare agency. that's how that started. So I started prepping. Took me a year to begin to get licensed and locations, and eventually in 2022, my wife looked at me that summer of 2022 and said, you can't do both, because the healthcare agency really was just draining us financially because we didn't have business yet. It takes a long time to get these things up and running. But she goes, if you're really going to do this, you need to put your heart and soul into it. And so that was in 2022 where we shut down the mortgage company, um, took a leap of faith, and decided to go all in with
Yeah.
building this healthcare agency at that point in time.
Tell me about the emotions that you experienced on that leap of faith. Because I always talk about going out on a limb of faith. Okay. Some people say a leap of faith. So, what was that leap of faith like for you? And what gave you the confidence that you could do it?
Yeah, I think it's a leap because when I went from the bank to my own mortgage company, that's a limb. I'm still on the same tree. I'm leaping to a whole different tree, is what I'm leaping to. And the information that I had, the numbers that I had, knowing that we could build this agency and that it could sustain us, uh, those ended up not even being the correct numbers. And what I was told, how I could start this thing, really completely changed from what I thought it was going to be to what it is actually today. And so the leap was, for me, it was, I thought we would be okay, Greg. We had enough savings put aside for me not to have to earn income for 9 months and without digging into 401ks, which I wasn't going to do. Uh, so we had money set aside for that, but it ended up being a much deeper journey that God was going to take us through than what I even anticipated. It was a beautiful journey, but it was a hard journey.
Yeah.
So yeah. And my wife was all in. And most women, Greg, there's no way that most women would ever look at their spouse and say, you're going to leave what you know how to do extremely well, that's providing the security that I need, and you're going to dive into a business that you know nothing about, and you're telling me it's going to work. That sounds just crazy when I think about that. It sounds
Yeah.
crazy. And the answer is, yeah, this is going to work. It's going to
Yeah.
work. And that first 2 years of this business, of what I'm doing now, the first 2 years, everything against me was just difficult. Challenges. So that's a whole nother story.
Did you get a lot of encouragement from people to do what you're doing today, or was it more
We didn't tell anybody.
discouragement?
No, we didn't tell people
Hmm.
because they would have thought, what are you doing? I don't even understand why would you do that? It would have been discouraged to hear other people talk about, well, you're being silly or foolish. So yeah, I didn't tell the plans of what we were doing to most people.
Yeah.
We were very stealth about it.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your growth spiritually. Let's just say over the, let's say, you can go back as far as you want, but maybe your spiritual life, spiritual walk was a certain way up to a point, and then it took a change. Whatever.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it was 2023. So we shut the mortgage down in 2022, November 1st. I come into my building at Ridgeline Recovery. I have a desk, a laptop. I have no computers. I have no staff. And I open up my laptop and I pray, Lord, how the heck do I do this business? I've been working on it for over a year. I've got all my licenses. I got everything I need to do to run the business, but I still didn't understand how to do it. And I'm just going to start connecting with as many people as possible to get this thing off the ground. It is not a way to start a business, but thank God that I invited him throughout that journey. So that following year, we were just pouring money into the business, and there's no money coming out of the business. And so things got really started to get a little tense and tight for us financially. And that's starting to bring back a lot of uh, uh, feelings from our past. And I could just start to tell that, Susie was starting to get concerned. Again, security is a big thing for our spouses. And we had stumbled upon some incredible teachings on giving. And let me back up before that. We were fortunate enough to go to another marriage conference in January. That was another time for us to really solidify what God's been doing in our lives, that He has a plan for us, and that we were unified. The marriage conferences are our gauge on how unified we are as a couple. That's why we go to these every year. It's just a great gauge. So, but that February, March, April, May, we were really just, things were starting to get really, really tight with the business. And we had some team members on, and money wasn't coming in the way it should be coming in. But I stumbled across some phenomenal teachings from some pastors, and it was really on tithing, it was on giving. And I just started to look at my past giving, and it was so sporadic, and it was embarrassing enough. It wasn't just wasn't great. And so the more Susie and I started looking at these pastors together and watching and what God's word has to say about giving, we just confessed before the Lord that we were just not faithful givers. And that's what God calls us to do, not just faithful, but cheerful givers. And so in the time that we had the least amount of income coming in as a family, we committed to give faithfully. And that is when things started to unlock in our lives, where we started to really understand that giving is us trusting God with everything in our life. And so that was that summer of 2023, and things started to begin to happen for us spiritually, and even our marriage was different, and we got excited, and we're still today excited about giving, and not just giving to the church, but finding little opportunities to give to other people, and what we call sowing seeds. You might be familiar with that term. So if we saw a need in that early spring, early or late spring, early summer of 2023, I would call her and say, "Hey, there's like a need. It's $25 or it's $50. What do you think if we pour into that?" She's like, "All right, let's do it." She was always on board. But the most memorable time was it was my birthday. I was here at the clinic, and my son was working at a Christian camp that he'd been part of for a long time. And the director of the Christian camp sent out a Facebook message saying, "Hey, we're getting ready to start camp. Could you pray for us? And also, if you can give anything, these are the needs that we have." I'd never heard him talk about asking, for funding for the camp. And I just felt like, I was like, "Lord, I want to give money to the camp right now, but we've given our money, we've sown our seeds this month, but I'd love to give, whatever it is." My name was $100. I'm like, "Lord, I'd love to give $100 to this place." Greg, it was maybe 30 minutes later that one of my team members came by and threw $100 bill on the table to tell me, "Hey, I didn't get you anything for your birthday, but I wanted to wish you a happy birthday." Now, he had no idea that my prayer was, "Lord, I want to give this money. So here's $100 in my hand." And I called Susie up. I'm like, "You'll never believe this story." And of course she does, because we started seeing God's hand at work this way. And so we released that seed into our camp, and we believe that God used that $100 to minister to kids, and that will have a lifelong impact on that. That's when you start to understand giving and sowing seeds, it is really exciting. And so we continue to do that through our time, treasure, and talent. That's what we're doing. So if you don't have a whole lot to give, you can also give your time, or your treasure, or your talent also. So yeah,
So that started in 23. Is that what you're saying?
23. Yeah,
So
it started in
it's only been a
23.
couple years. Now, are you
Yeah.
noticing that, as time has gone on, you've gotten bigger and better, for lack of a better word, better. Okay. I'm just going to say the word better, but a better farmer of sowing these seeds
Yes.
and giving. So let me ask you this: when you like, you wanted to give, okay, you had a feeling to give, and there's times where you feel like, I really want to give. Okay, what is it that prompts you?
What do you mean? What prompts me? Like, it's
What
just the
prompts you?
spirit
What,
moving.
the
Oh, it's the
spirit?
spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's the same with
the Holy
Susie. She'll
Spirit.
call me and go, "Yeah, Holy Spirit prompts
Yeah.
you," and then she'll call me and go, hey, I really think we need to give to this person. They have this little need. And it's not just given to missionaries, which nothing wrong with that. Please give to missionaries. But sometimes it's just meeting the need of somebody. It might even be a non-believer that they're in need of something right then and there. We get to be part of that. So that's the exciting part. It's taking someone out to dinner and pouring into them, paying for the bill, and then just pouring into them also and listening to them and asking them questions. That's all part of it. You're sowing seeds into people's lives. We've sown seeds into other businesses that we believe have God's hand on them, which is important. And so just starting to understand what that looks like, it's a beautiful thing.
Right on. Right on. Do
Yeah.
you, so what kept you, was there something that was keeping you from being the giver you are today back when you weren't a giver?
Oh man. A lack of understanding. And the crazy thing is my parents were the biggest givers in the world. They
Wow.
were, they were my dad and mom were so incredibly faithful with giving and sowing seeds. They would never have called it sowing seeds back then. But they they uh, they were doing it. They were giving above and beyond. And it's crazy when you see the fruits of their, and they didn't have a lot. They just didn't have a lot. But what God has done and blessed them and took care of them financially over the years is incredible. So I don't know. I had the example of it, but I just didn't understand the importance of it. And we've all heard messages about giving, but again, that was part of that selfishness, Greg. That's mine. It's my money. I'll give some to the Lord. And I led my family poorly in that realm. So yeah,
So in 23, did you change church buildings? I mean, I know we're all part of the church body, but did you go to a different place where you were taught something that you just
no,
didn't know? Then where
no,
did you learn this? I
we
know
just
you
learned
plugged
it
into
online.
pastors, but
Yeah,
online.
we learned it from several pastors online. Is
Okay,
what we learned it from. Yeah,
fair enough. Now, would you
yeah.
say that all pastors online that talk about this subject are worth plugging into, or do you need to be
No,
really discerning?
no, no. And again, I'm not. I mean, some of them. Yeah, I would say no.
Yeah,
I would say no. You have to. Sure. Yeah, I would say no.
you got to be discerning with the
You have to
information
be
and
discerning.
the biblical
Exactly.
foundation of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I get it.
Yes.
So, Andy, what would you tell? I'm 56, okay, and there's some guys out there that'll be watching this that are in their 20s, they're in their 30s, they've been married for 2 or 3 years, 4 years. They wouldn't tell me, and they may not tell anyone. Their marriage is bumpy. Their marriage is rocky. They don't know what they're doing as a man, okay? And their wife is, you know, maybe their wife doesn't believe in them like they did when they were dating, okay? What would you tell that guy?
Oh, I would plead with that guy to connect with somebody, to connect with a mentor, to connect with someone who has a phenomenal marriage, and to let that person pour into both he and his spouse. And I would encourage them to get counseling along the way, because what we're missing is that my life is with my marriage is so beautiful now. It's so different, and you don't need to wait 20 some years to get that great marriage. You could have it today. You could start that process now, even though it might be bumpy, even though you guys have disagreements. God designed you guys to work together as one person. And there's joy and peace and beauty and excitement. It's all in there. It's just that I just don't think we're telling our young couples that are getting married, they're just not understanding it. They don't get it. And we're the men that are standing up saying, let me help you. We're the men and women together standing up saying, let me help you through this process. Because Greg, we need strong marriages. Brother, I look at you and Bess. You guys, we're we have a lot of people from Worthington Christian that have been divorced, unfortunately. And I look at these champions of marriage like yourself and a lot of my other friends that are they've got marriages, they've been married for 30 plus years. My next question would be, well, that's phenomenal, but are you joyfully married, or are you just existing? and I see you and Bess as joyfully married. You guys are doing life together. That's the fun part about being married all this time is like, hey, we really enjoy each other. We enjoy being together. We enjoy doing life together. Um, let's go. Let's roll. As opposed to growing apart as you get older. That sounds horrible, right? I desire to want to do things with. I No offense to the golfers, because I have my own hobbies I like to do. I have no desire to go away and golf, every weekend. I really like to golf, but I definitely wouldn't do it because my wife wouldn't want to do it. I'm looking to do things that my wife would most likely like to do. Again, we have our separation. That's normal. That's okay. But the older I get, the more time I just want to spend with her. I believe that desire has always been available to us. We weren't connected, and there weren't people to help us connect.
So Andy, and as we wrap this up, okay,
Mhm,
I want to
mhm.
ask you: has God revealed to you like what's next for Andy? What does the next 5 to 10 years look like for you?
Right now, then at Ridgeline Recovery, which is the healthcare agency we're part of, we are just committed to really help the community of people that we work with, which are folks that are really down and out. They have severe addiction issues, or they have really challenging mental health issues. It's to be that light in this community with these people. And one of the things that I learned, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to learn this, was that I used to look at people differently. And I wasn't necessarily judgmental, but I wasn't so compassionate towards people that struggle with addiction. And there's a reason they're struggling with it. And it's not just a matter of, well, they should just get over it or they should go get help. Most addiction or all addiction has some type of trauma tied to it. And so God has opened my eyes in this field to see people uh, completely different, to see him as he would, well, hopefully to see him as he sees him, and to love the most unlovable people. This is what my calling is right now, is to grow and perfect and to build into Ridgeline Recovery. I build into the team that's part of Ridgeline Recovery. That's my lane, so that they can pour into our patients, our clients. That's my goal. So
Awesome. Well, we're going to put information in the description about Ridgeline, okay, and what you
perfect.
do, so people can connect with you
Yep.
there. All right.
Yep.
But I just want to thank you, brother, for sharing. I never know the direction things are going to go because I don't know what people are going to say, and it leads to another question, and it leads to discovery. And the cool thing that I've watched when I've interviewed individuals is I know where they end up. Like I know where they are. It's almost like episode 4 of Star Wars, The New Hope. Everybody watched that first. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So episode 1, 2, and 3 are going to match up with number 4. It has to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's just cool to watch the journey that you've been on to develop you into the man you are today, doing
Amen.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't the final product, but it is today. This is the final product today, but it's not the final product tomorrow because you're going to keep
Right.
growing. And so
Right.
it's really cool to hear the inside scoop and to hear the the pieces of the story I didn't know. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing
Thanks,
it with
Greg.
us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you. I appreciate watching you and Bess over all these years, for championing your marriage, for being authentic, Greg. That's my favorite thing, is to be around people that are authentic, because we need it,
Yeah,
right? And not to be concerned what the world necessarily thinks, but to be more concerned about what does my Savior think about what I'm doing. So appreciate you, man. Love you,
right
bro.
on.
All right.
Amen.
God bless.